Hi, movie recap top here. Today I'm going to explain a horror thriller movie called The Well. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens with Lisa Gray, an American art restoration expert, on a bus heading to the suburbs of Lazio. Shortly after, the bus stops, and a group of 3 people, including 2 women and a man, climb aboard. They look like tourists and immediately start a conversation with Lisa. It turns out the 2 women, Tracy and Madison, are American biologists, and the man, Tony, is their Italian guide. They are headed to a village named Sanuki to study the local fauna. Lisa introduces herself and reveals that she is going to the same village. A few hours later, it becomes nighttime, and the group arrives at their destination. The biologists reveal that they are going to set up camp in a nearby forest. Lisa, on the other hand, has a hotel reservation not far from the bus stop. They promise to meet again a few days later before heading their separate ways. The next morning, Lisa is waiting at the bus stop outside her hotel when a handsome local man approaches her. He informs her that she won't find any buses in the area and asks where she is headed. Lisa replies that she is going to the Malvit mansion, and the young man offers to drop her there. Although she feels a little uneasy, Lisa accepts the offer, and they walk there together. On the way, the young man introduces himself as Marcus, and Lisa shares her name as well. They soon reach the Malvit mansion, a grand old building with great historical importance. Marcus escorts her to the front door, and before leaving, he mentions that he runs a pub nearby and invites her to visit anytime. He then takes his leave. Once inside the mansion, Lisa is warmly greeted by its owner, Mrs. Emma Fossa Malvit. She is a single mother who looks very young and fit despite her age. Emma quickly leads Lisa upstairs, where the painting that needs restoration is kept. The painting was damaged in a fire and has a thick black residue on its surface. Lisa carefully examines it and says that the restoration process will take about a month. But when Emma hears this, she suddenly changes her tone and says that the restoration must be completed in 2 weeks. Slightly taken aback, Lisa agrees to start immediately and asks if she can sleep in the room with the painting. Emma agrees to this and leaves Lisa to start working. That night, Tony, the Italian guide, sets up a microphone in the woods near the village of Sanuki. He heads back to his tent and listens to the sounds coming through the microphone. At first, everything seems normal, but then he hears a strange screeching noise. Worried that the microphone might be broken, Tony decides to investigate. But before he can go far, we hear him shouting in a distressed voice. Startled by the screams, the 2 American biologists, Madison and Tracy, wake up in their tent. Madison leaves Tracy alone and goes into the woods to search for their guide. She soon finds Tony's blood-stained cap not far from their camp. Terrified, Madison returns to the tent and insists they need to go to the police. But before she can explain further, someone suddenly grabs her neck and pulls her away. Tracy, still confused and frightened, tries to sneak out of the tent, but someone knocks her out with a blow to the head. The scene then shifts to Madison, who wakes up behind bars in a dimly lit cell. She notices a man named Rocco throwing up in another cell nearby. As she looks around, she sees Tracy and Tony in similar cells. The whole place looks like a circular prison, and at the center of it, there is a well. Back at the mansion, Lisa is having dinner with Emma and her teenage daughter, Julia. Lisa tries to start a conversation with Julia, asking what grade she is in, but Julia suddenly drops her fork and leaves the table without saying a word. Emma apologizes for her daughter's behavior and explains that Julia has a personality disorder. She is 13 years old but refuses to act her age. Lisa thanks Emma for the dinner and excuses herself for the evening. Elsewhere, a muscular, pale-skinned figure named Aruda slowly enters the area with the cells. He begins observing each prisoner before heading toward the well in the center. Tony starts yelling at Aruda, demanding to be let out, but Aruda remains silent. He lowers a steel bucket into the well and pulls it back up. Tony continues to shout profanities, but this only angers Aruda. He approaches Tony's cell and stabs him in the back with a butcher's knife. The women watch in horror as Aruda drags Tony's limp body to the well and throws him in. Back at the mansion, Lisa is making progress with the restoration of the painting. She is deeply focused when she uncovers a strange, eerie cat-like face hidden beneath the layers of damage. Lisa is intrigued and tries to scrape away the thick black char from the face, but suddenly, a piercing scream echoes around the room, startling her. She recoils in horror and accidentally cuts her finger with the restoration tool. Worried, Lisa carefully removes her glove, but her blood splashes onto the painting. The scene cuts to the prison, where Rocco is attempting to escape using a nail file. He is so nervous that the file slips and falls into the gutter below. Rocco turns to Madison and tells her there is a passage beneath his cell, but he has lost the tool. He promises to bring help if they assist him in escaping. Madison throws her Swiss Army knife toward his cell, and Rocco manages to grab it. Later that night, while Lisa is sleeping, a naked, ghastly figure enters her room and lies down next to her. The figure begins to touch her sensually, moving its hand toward her neck, but then it starts strangling her, causing her to awaken in a panic. The figure's face is terrifying, and Lisa begins choking. Just as she feels she's about to die, she suddenly jolts awake and finds herself sitting in a chair. She looks at the painting in front of her, and to her horror, one of the figures in the painting looks exactly like the entity she saw in her dream. Lisa slowly approaches the painting when suddenly, Julia arrives in the room. The teenager tells her to run away and warns her that the painting is cursed. Julia says that if Lisa restores the painting, she will be haunted forever. Meanwhile, in the prison, Aruda arrives again and drops the metal bucket into the well. A pale, ashy pair of arms emerge from the shadows and grab the bucket. Whatever creature is living in the well slits its forearm and drips a large amount of its blood into the bucket. Aruda pulls the bucket back up and sets it aside before heading to Rocco's cell. Madison realizes that if Rocco dies, no one will be able to escape from this hellhole. In an act of sacrifice, she starts taunting the behemoth. The plan works, and Aruda begins to approach her cell, but then he brutally peels the skin off Madison's face before throwing her into the well. Madison, meanwhile, is finally revealed to be the creature that lurks in the darkness of the well. It is a disfigured, ugly, pale, ghost-like entity that feeds on Madison's intestines. Back at the mansion, a disturbed Lisa talks to Emma about the painting. She unknowingly reveals that Julia had told her some disturbing stories about the painting. But Emma brushes off the claims, saying that Julia often makes up strange fantasy stories. Emma urges Lisa to focus on her work, reminding her that according to the contract, any delays in delivery will result in heavy penalties. With the mounting pressure, Lisa takes some antidepressants before going back to work. She's about to start when suddenly she hears someone crying nearby. Lisa cautiously goes to investigate, only to be horrified by the sight of Madison, severely injured and crying in a bathtub. Overcome with fear, Lisa runs out of the room and crashes into Emma. The illusion shatters, and Lisa realizes that no one is in the bathroom. Emma is furious at Lisa's frequent breakdowns and warns her that if the work isn't completed on time, she will regret it. Meanwhile, in the prison, Rocco finally manages to open the grate, covering the entrance to the gutter. He is ecstatic and attempts to enter headfirst, but suddenly something horrifying happens. A pair of lean, pale arms grab his neck and begin peeling the skin off his face. The ghost-like entity then kills him instantly before devouring his flesh. Elsewhere, while Lisa tirelessly works to finish the painting, she is visited once more by Julia. The teenager reveals that the painting was created in 1493 and depicts her mother performing a human sacrifice to summon a monstrous being named Goran. Once the monster appeared, Emma trapped it, and ever since, she has been using its blood to stay young. Julia explains that if the red moon shines on the painting before midnight, the curse will renew for another 500 years. To prove her point, Julia reveals details about the last 3 victims captured. 2 girls, one black and one blonde, and a man. Their descriptions match exactly with the 3 tourists that Lisa met on the bus. Julia then leads Lisa to the location where the prisoners are being held. As they approach, they see Aruda unlocking a door and heading down to the basement. But just then, Emma calls for her daughter, so the teenager reluctantly leaves. Determined to help the captives, Lisa arms herself with an iron rod and cautiously heads downstairs. She sneaks through a door and follows Aruda to the basement. Lisa watches in horror as the behemoth enters the cell room, but accidentally knocks over some metal rods, making a lot of noise. Fortunately, she hides beneath a nearby table before Aruda arrives to investigate. He assumes the noise was caused by rats and heads back into the room. Shortly after, Tracy freezes in terror as Aruda approaches and unlocks her cell. She bravely strikes him and tries to escape, but she stumbles on the stairs and loses consciousness. When Tracy wakes up, she finds Aruda standing over her with a red-hot knife. He presses it against her face, burning her skin without remorse. Then he lifts Tracy up and slowly lowers her into the well. At this critical moment, Lisa uses the iron rod to strike Aruda on the back of the head. The behemoth falls down, temporarily knocked out. Lisa uses this opportunity to pull Tracy up from the well, and the two make a run for it. Meanwhile, Aruda slowly regains consciousness and surveys the scene. He notices the open passage in one of the cells, along with Rocco's half-devoured body. To his horror, he realizes that the demon trapped at the bottom of the well is now free. His fears are confirmed when he turns around and sees the ghost-like pale figure standing right in front of him. It is revealed that this is the demon Goran that Emma had imprisoned centuries ago. The monster brutally attacks Aruda and feeds on his flesh. The scene shifts to Tracy and Lisa, who have managed to reach outside the mansion. They are relieved to find Marcus there, but in a shocking turn of events, he shoots Tracy with his bow. He then threatens Lisa to enter the room with the painting. Inside, she finds several people gathered, including Emma and the ugly creature that had tried to choke her in her nightmare. They are holding candles and waiting for midnight to arrive. Emma instructs Lisa to finish the painting before the clock strikes 12. Reluctantly, Lisa resumes her work, and as she does, Emma's image is revealed on the canvas. Marcus's face is also painted next to Emma's, and they begin chanting. Everything seems doomed when suddenly Julia bursts into the room with a candle. She orders everyone to step back, or she will set the painting on fire. The teenager then goes on a rant, accusing Emma of trapping her in a little girl's body for centuries. Her words enrage Emma, and she orders Marcus to kill Julia. But before he can act, Lisa hurls the cleaning solvent onto Marcus's face. Seeing this, Emma lets out a furious scream and shoots Lisa with an arrow. Just as Marcus moves to finish them off, moonlight floods the room. It touches everyone, transforming them into their true aged forms. One by one, they wither and curl up into balls of dried flesh. Lisa and Julia watch in horror as Emma rapidly ages, crumbles into ashes, and vanishes. Then Julia also begins to change, revealing that she is actually much older than the teenage body she was captured in. She bids farewell to Lisa before disintegrating into ash. Now all alone, Lisa, who has an arrow in her abdomen, stumbles toward the door and tries to leave. Her exit is soon blocked by Goran, the demon. Lisa quickly slams the door shut, but the demon begins furiously pounding on it. Desperate, Lisa approaches the painting and starts scrubbing away the section containing the chant. Just as Goran breaks through the door, she begins reciting the chant from the painting. Surprisingly, this causes the demon to let out a deafening scream before collapsing on the floor. The scene shifts to 30 years later, where Lisa is seen in the mansion, still as young as she was when she first came to Sanuki. Downstairs, we see a team of doctors, and Goran is still alive, bound tightly to a bed. Lisa approaches them and coldly instructs the head doctor to increase the production. The doctor obliges and injects a syringe into Goran's throat, provoking it to let out a blood-curdling scream. It is obvious that Lisa used the chant to trap Goran and is now using its blood to gain eternal youth. Lisa's plan has succeeded. She now holds the power of eternal youth, but it is clear that her actions have come at a cost. The chilling truth of what she has become unfolds as she watches Goran, still alive and tortured for his blood. Lisa's cold demeanor signals the beginning of a new dark chapter in her life. She has trapped herself in a never-ending cycle of youth, forever tied to the cursed painting and the monster that sustains her. With Goran now under her control, Lisa's transformation into a person who would sacrifice anything to maintain her youth is complete. She is no longer the woman who arrived in Sanuki, seeking only to restore a painting. Instead, she has become the very thing that the village had feared, a timeless, cursed being who uses dark forces to fuel her existence. And as the scene fades, it's clear that Lisa's future is as twisted and unyielding as the curse she has embraced.